Hello, my friends. This is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you today on No Soundbites Allowed. I'm happy to be here with you. And for many people, like myself, we're back to work. Or at least what is a semblance of going back to work. And as you can hear, there's still some bugs in the system. And there's some cosmetic issues that still haven't been resolved. Because, like most of us, when essentially the world shut down, a lot of things weren't able to be done. Dentistry, getting to work, having a business that's there. And it's important to realize where we are right now, because we are in a critical situation going forward. And I think it needs to be said. Right now, we have Governor Cuomo, like many other governors in many other states, has said that it's time to start getting America back into business, back to work. And we're starting to see, mostly from social media, the fact that many of these businesses, roughly 10 to 15% on a national level, have not reopened. Matter of fact, they're not going to reopen. These are businesses that are going to be closed forever. And in many areas throughout the country, we're going to see higher numbers than that. I happen to be in the southern tier of New York, and we are expecting conservative and unofficial estimates are somewhere that it could be 15 to 22%. Probably around 18% of businesses will never reopen. We've already seen in Utica and other surrounding regions, businesses that have closed for, restaurants that have been around for 115 years are closed. We've seen individuals who had a gym, a woman in particular I saw on Facebook. She had a gym that she spent 15 years to build and to open up her own business, and in the space of 5 weeks, it is now gone forever. Get used to this. We're going to hear more of these stories, not less of them. And we're going to see the unemployment rate, which has been around, right now is about 40 million. I do not think that number has peaked. We're going to see more people who are going to be unemployed as we go forward. I think the peak is somewhere around 50 million. And that's with people coming back to work, but also businesses shutting down forever. That goes right in line with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who estimated that only about 29% of all small businesses had just enough money to make it through 60 days. That's it. The overwhelming majority of that were businesses that only had enough funds for 30 days. Well, we happen to be at about 60 days, depending on exactly how you count and which state you're counting for. New York State's roughly about 46 days. And so you're looking at businesses that are going to have a great deal of difficulty being able to restart. At the same time, we have Governor Cuomo, who, today announced that only 3 out of 10 upstate regions are able to restart business this week, at the end of the week. That's horrible. And the businesses that are allowed to restart are only in construction and in some other essential businesses. So retail and restaurants, bars, they're not opening, which means those businesses are now at risk as they continue to be closed. This is not good for the economy. Even though upstate New York overwhelmingly had no real impact from COVID-19. So we have to ask the question, is it worth it? We also have to ask another very important question. At the same time that Governor Cuomo is now saying, okay, he's given his permission for businesses, private businesses, to reopen, to start trying to survive. At the same time, he's also extended his personal emergency powers until 2021. He has taken enough emergency power that, I believe it was New York Times reported, that he's had 262 laws changed just because Governor Cuomo wants to. And that's in 55 days. So you have to ask yourself, is this worth it? Is it worth giving Governor Cuomo unlimited powers? I mean, this is a man who, over the last decade that he's been in office, has often been called an emperor, or that he acts like an authoritarian. And here he is now with power. In fact, the New York Times today is talking about how many in the state government have been saying this is too much power. No one has influence on what Governor Cuomo is doing because he can do anything under emergency powers, and he has been. And is this really worth it? There is no end in sight. In fact, the 2020 election has now become hypercritical for the average person in America. Whether or not you consider the presidential race to be of interest or not doesn't matter anymore. What does matter are the local races. We're talking about the state level and the local level races. They're incredibly important now. When we see state government, when we're watching the governor and county executives initiating laws, emergency powers with no end in sight, there is no time limit except for the end of the crisis. Well, when is the crisis over? We have no idea. There is no way to say. What if COVID-19 is like SARS or like Zika virus or the flu, that it comes back every year, that people are affected every year? Swine flu has not gone away. The Ebola has not gone away. Mumps, measles, flu have not gone away. They exist in the world. Millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people die from them every year. Tuberculosis is the 10th leading cause of death in the world, according to the WHO. So I have to ask the question, when can we say this crisis is actually going to be over? When we all can get our cosmetic surgeries back? When we can go out to stores without having to wear a mask? When? And by the way, for any of those who are wondering, I'm the only one in the office right now, so there is no one else for me to wear a mask for. But my big question is, what are we going to do? We need to put in safeguards. We need term limits, and more importantly, we need safeguards so that elitists in government cannot just usurp power and take on power because of the fear that they instilled in the average person in America, and now they have ultimate reign for an unlimited period of time. And I know some people are going to say, well, no, coronavirus is going away, we're getting a vaccine, the summer's coming. Well, yes, the summer is coming, and then the fall and winter after that. And even though we haven't heard plans from any level of government saying, how are we going to prepare for COVID-19 in the fall of 2020? What precautions are we going to take? Are we going to do this exact same shutdown of the world again when it comes back? Because we don't have a virus, and we're not guaranteed that a virus will work. The flu has a virus, has a vaccine, and we have no guarantee that you're not going to get the flu or any other malady. So that's not an answer in itself. So that isn't a guarantee that we're going to see Governor Cuomo, as an example, Governor Whitmer, to give up their emergency powers and stop people like County Executive Jason Garnar from initiating official statements where people are prisoners in their own home. No, I did not forget Operation Crush COVID, and I never will. No government, whether it's local, state, or federal, should have such power, I believe. You may disagree, and that's okay. But I think that makes 2020 absolutely critical, that we must make sure that we are electing individuals who understand term limits are absolutely necessary. Limits on the power of government over the people are essential, and that they must enact laws that preserve our rights above and beyond the power grabs that we are seeing happening across this country at the state and local level. And just as a disclaimer, I do need to mention, I am a candidate right now. I am running for Broome County legislator for the 13th district, and I count myself in that group that must be accountable, that must say term limits are essential, that says that government doesn't have ultimate power, and there must be very clear stipulations saying you cannot have all the power. Because all we need for Governor Cuomo and many of the county executives, not only in New York State, but across the country, to continue to have ultimate power is that a crisis continues. You know what? Have you heard about the Kawasaki disease? Kawasaki disease is not about the motorcycle, but it is a disease that affects children, usually under the age of 5. And it's a rare disease. There are 73 cases in New York State now. Many people believe, or they're coming to believe, that because of COVID, it's emphasizing or is a catalyst for younger children under 5 for getting the Kawasaki disease. Is that correct? We don't know. But if we shut down the world and New York State for COVID, which has a 98% survivability rate, and the answer was, and we hear this day in and day out, including in my local news radio talk program, how the moral equivalence is if you do not toe the line, you're evil. You somehow do not value life, which is insane. And how dare anyone say you don't care just because you don't agree. But with that, how can we say Kawasaki affects children? Everyone loves children. The crisis continues. Ultimate power must continue. Emergency power must be held by Governor Cuomo. You think that can't happen? History is filled with dictators that started just in that manner. So maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you agree with me. But I do believe 2020 has now become exponentially more important because we must make sure our leaders understand. Actually, they're not our leaders. Our elected officials must understand that while we have suffered from, many people have suffered from suicide, from domestic abuse, from alcohol and drug addiction, and cosmetic issues, as well as being out of work and financial issues, that isn't enough of a reason to say they need to have emergency powers. They can't hold a moral equivalence over us, holding us hostage to this idea that if you don't agree, you must be evil, because that's not true. But I look forward to hearing your thoughts about the reopening, about 2020, and everything else. Folks, I hope you're going to be very well. My name is Michael Voss. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I hope to talk to you very, very soon.